So provenance, as you see, this is a copper ore. And you will see provenance. Provenance means that everything is built from an origin. Every design philosophy, every design intent came from an influence. And from me, I am an influence of someone else. And there is always that belief, and there's always that philosophy. So the copper ore turning into copper, where during the age of copper, from light gold, it becomes green. So it has a patina. A patina is a stain that tells you the age of the philosophy, or for this one, the panel. The patina is something that we impart as architects or designers or design thinkers, you might want to say. How do we impart it to you? Let me start off with this slide. I graduated in this university 2002, and at that time I realized when I graduated that there wasn't really much for me, architecture. There was such a thing called architecture pastiche. Pastiche meaning it was just a mishmash of elements trying to make it a house or a building. So at that time, there was a lot of practices that would say that you have a client, the client says, I want you to design a house. And the architect would say, what style do you want this to be? Do you want it a Mediterranean, a classical, a modern? And he will give you three schemes. And they will show, okay, the classical, you have classical columns. A Mediterranean, you have these deep moldings. And if it's a modern building, it's all these curves and squares. For me, that is not architecture. There's so much more meaning than architecture for this one. And that is something that I was really yearning when I graduated. I was like, who the heck will mentor me? Of course, there was a lot of modern architecture at that time as well, but I felt that they lacked some dynamism. So I was really looking for something. Then came this Blueprint Volume 2, 2002 magazine, where just recently when I was graduating in 2002, I saw this house. This house is still here in Northtown, in Cebu. And I saw this work and I completely got blown away. And I felt, this is the architecture I want to learn. Everything that you do, you cannot copy. You have to learn a discipline. Architecture is a discipline. And it is very hard just to look at it and say, okay, I want to be like that, and you just copy. It will never be the same, and it will always be just superficial. So this, in fact, in a way, when I was reading Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, okay, so during my before I started working as an apprentice to him, I was really looking for something. I was like, okay, and what did Paulo Coelho said? The universe will transpire you for what you really want. In a way, I didn't got accepted inside his firm because it was full, but in a way, the universe transpired me that I got connected to him, and I worked there for 4 years. So this guy is called Alex Medalla and his team. During those times, we found out that there's really architectural lineage. There's always a lineage to design philosophy, and there's always energy to impart design excellence. And this is represented by these people. From, I would say, in honor of the late Artemio Alcoseba, the architect of our chapel, and a few of our buildings, is in fact this father of Cebu modernism, where they have two second-generation architects with a primary example of Dolly Wong and Arsing Abella, and the third generation of architect, Alex Medalla, and his husband and wife team, Alex, Janet, and Ryan. And of course, I like to claim myself as a fifth, right? Fourth, second, third, fourth. Okay, fourth modernist. And I like to inspire, of course, the fifth generation of modernists. These are some of their works, basically. That is the house of Betty Kabunpue, the mother of Kenneth. And he was the architect Arsing, and that's why you'd say, in a way, environment really matters, you know? How creativity, apart, of course, from his mom, environment really matters. The Agustinian Seminary, and of course, House on the Hill in Marluisa by Alex Medalla. In 2005, I started my own. And in 2010, I named my firm the Zubu Design Associates. And it is the former name of Cebu. I believe, I'm so proud to be Cebuano, and I know we can impact globally. Just as minute as an island, we do have resources and ideas that we need to cultivate. And that's why I really wanted to use our namesake. But I'm not the owner of Zubuchon. So during those times, I already imparted myself, I will never practice aside from modern architecture. Modern architecture or bust. I'd rather be doing anything else but that. I will never do anything that is classical, Mediterranean, etc. So that was a stylistic aspect, but that learning became more of an intellectual view and a philosophy that really ingrained in towards me. During the early times, well, of course, I'm still an early, young architect. Um, this is these were design models that we wanted to do. So it was derived from the international style during the 1940s to 1950s, where of course that was the height of modernism. And the different design models that we wanted to do were also continuous loops, planar models, planes, massing compositions that we wanted to fold to create that space and volume as seen in these three projects that I have. There was also an investigation that we wanted to do. We wanted to create heavy contradictions of heavy and light, where you have heavy massing in terms of the composition of our architecture, but still make it look like it floats. So these are some of the examples. Probably a couple of years back, when I was teaching here in USC, I really came about with this form of expression called diagrams, architecture diagrams. Architecture diagrams is the thought process behind it. We document our thought process. Usually, when you see architecture, it's at the end. But, as always, process equals result. The process is as important as result. So in a way, we wanted to document everything that happens in our thought process, put it in a manual, why it came about to this certain form. This one was applied to one of our projects. Right now is the Department of Trade and Industry provincial headquarters. It used to be the DFA before. It's near Santo Niño. When the provincial director came to me, she was quite pessimistic of what the space was all about. Thanks for having at least I loved modern architecture history. I would definitely pinpoint to you that this is a 1960s building because of its form and its parapet, where you see these tessellated forms. And that is what you see. So if you see houses like that, that was around the 60s to 70s. And I wanted to celebrate that. And I said to the provincial director, ma'am, this building has character. Let's do this. Let us make something out of this. So this one was definitely just the box. What we did was we created a corner marker where we used and mutated these tessellations to make it more interesting. Apart from just being an interest, a corner marker is very important for the identity of this building. And that is how we came about tessellating, mutating it all the way towards the ground. This is an actual photo. And then on the west side, usually, west side, so Nestor would be proud of me. So the west side would always have the afternoon sun. But in this building before, if you noticed, there was no windows at all. See? So we wanted to bring in the light indirectly. So we introduced architectural elements called what I called the gills, where you have indirect lighting bouncing off, and then going towards indirectly without the added light. But at the end, by the other side, it was a little bit more. It was less harsher. So I inverted all these planes to make it more of these elements where you have more glass to bring in a lot more light. So anyway, you see, it is an assemblage, the diagram and the final result. It is an assemblage of what we wanted to do. And that is how I feel proud of what we do, because we wanted to really emphasize the plan and the design intent. Another house that I want to show you is entitled the Line Graph House. I was hired by one of our students here in USC. He already graduated. He was a fifth-year architecture student and wanted me to design a very modern house. And of course, this was a very good opportunity because the inside stuff was I was selling to the son, not the parents. So they told me, Buck, Sir Buck, can you design me a one-story house? And of course, as a renegade, you always rebel. Let me find something better. So what we did was, apart from a one-story house, we even tried to find a way to manipulate a one-story house and try to elevate a little portion of it as a plinth. And I wanted to create a certain kind of undulating like a line graph, you know, creating a very heavy composition, very, very pure mass, where you see this is already under construction, and that is basically the diagram that Reese made it into that. From there, we created a lot of manipulations to form. We pushed it back a little bit, make it more irregular. Why? Because we wanted the composition to be more elongated and really pursue that axis, that mass that we wanted. Along the way, there were a lot of undulations during the manipulations of the roof, and then you will see a lot of manipulations of the up and down graph-like element that you see underneath and on top. We created a letter C plan because we wanted it very introverted. This is in Iligan, this is not in Cebu. So we wanted to be very, very centered towards the garden, and that's how we created a letter C plan, manipulating again from a two-story building that flows to becomes a one-story building. And of course, whatever is inside has to be the identity of the outside. That is a pure modernist principle. Whatever, you have to be very honest in what you do. There's no ornamentation, there's nothing like that, and it should be very pure in its intent. The last project I'd like to show you is called From Box to Gable. So box, a very modernist expression of architecture, towards the end product, which is a gable. And everyone here, when we were kids, we'd always draw a house like this, right? This is a very typical archetype of architecture, where you really see, I want to build a house. This is what you envision to be. So what do? We wanted to use a manipulation of axis. We were so interested into axis right now, and how to create manipulation of form, where you have a box, it becomes a gable. So that is the whole intent of what we wanted to create in terms of the design concept for a house here in Cebu. But we have a problem. We cannot go too lengthwise because the site will not permit us because of the program. So we had to fold it and put it on top. This axis created this kind of certain manipulation where you have these end products seen in the front, where you have the box and the gable house. But another thing that came about was, because of this gable, because of this form, this manipulation, there has to be something that was mutated in the transition between the ground and the second. So we said, what could that be? And we discovered it's a trapezoid. So these are geometries that we really wanted to investigate on, in just to create this clear parameter. We created parameters for this design, we created parameters for the concept, and how we want to work out, of course, not compromising function, not compromising the ideals of us, and of course the client. So in a way, you see where you have the trapezoid, and in fact, because of the axiality of this concept, we use that as a form of the stairs. So it's going to be the circulation space going towards the second floor. From there on, you had all these other components to make sure that the building function, that vis-a-vis complement the architecture of this house. I'm a product of the past. I'm a product of what is before. That's why I will always encourage you to seek your mentorship. And myself, I want to inspire you so that you can be a product of the lineage of architecture. Thank you.